Hi, this is Chris Beaulieu from Stanford University, and I'm going to do a short demonstration of virtual PACS and then move into iPad. I've opened the virtual PACS widget here and have pointed it to the National Biomedical Image Archive. I've also set up my OSIRIX application to be able to query and retrieve. If I open the query button, I can point to that archive and then put in a query for a patient that I know the code for, TCGA 08-0351, and query the virtual PACS. You can see the listing come up here. In this instance, I know I want series 14, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight that and then retrieve that data over the virtual PACS. And it takes a few moments, but eventually it will show up in my OSIRIX application. You can see the images being downloaded on the lower part of this screen here where the OSIRIX icon is. And now if I close the query window, you can see that it's downloaded that study into my OSIRIX window as a de-identified patient data set. And I'll go ahead and open that up. And so this is a T2 weighted MR series of a patient with a brain tumor, and then we'll move on to showing how to annotate that using iPad. Go ahead and shift this over, and then I'm going to open up the annotation tool iPad.
iPad is ready.
An iPad's an interactive device that allows us to capture structured annotations on medical images. I'm going to choose the Vasari template for the lexicon, and now I'll place an ROI on the lesion in this patient's brain. I'll draw it kind of coarsely for this demonstration purpose. Next, I'll give the lesion a name. And now we're ready to annotate. The first step is to indicate a lesion location. An iPad has a number of drop-down menus that already have coded terms within them. So I've clicked P because I know this is in the parietal lobe, and other options would be given in the drop-down menu. So if it was in a different location, I would change that. As I increase the number of annotations, I'll open the drop-down menu here to show all the terms I need to annotate. And I need to put in what the lesion is, and in this case it's a tumor. And then there's a number of sub-features that I can annotate as well. Let me open up the window here to show the full terms. So for example, does the tumor cross the midline? And in this case, the tumor does not cross the midline, or it's not applicable. And again, this brings up a number of drop-down menus that I can use to quickly enter the annotations. I'll put in a couple more here. Thickness of the enhancing margin. This one really does not have an enhancing margin, so I click no enhancing margin. But I could choose other options if I wanted to. One more. And I can just choose the drop-down menu if I don't know what the annotation is and choose a term that's applicable. I'm going to pause for a second and add the rest of the annotations. So I've completed most of the annotations after that short break. I'm going to show what happens if you put in a wrong term here. So for deep white matter invasion, if I type a term that's not appropriate,
My text is not a term in the lexicon.
then it tells me that that's not a term in the lexicon. So I have to correct that to one of the accepted terms so that the information is coded correctly. Eloquent deep brain involvement is the last term, and I'll say no eloquent deep brain involvement. Once the annotation is complete, it should give us information about that and say the annotation is complete. In this case, it's not telling me that the annotation is complete. So I can click on the small question mark down here and it'll tell me what's wrong.
An annotation type is required.
It said an annotation type is required, and you can see in the lower window here all the feedback information that we get. So I hadn't chosen an annotation type, so I'm going to put this in as a brain tumor baseline target lesion.
The annotation is valid and complete.
Now the transmit button is highlighted, so if I click on that, it'll transmit the data to the database. Here we can choose a Stanford database or the external database at Emory AIME. Click on that, and the data has been transmitted to that database, and it gives me a feedback window as such. Similarly, I can export the annotation. If I go to the annotations page here, I can click on that annotation, and if I wanted to, I could drill down into the various tables to show who did the annotation, the anatomic entities, and all the subterms here. But if I just click on export, then it should also export the annotation to a local database. What I'd like to show now is how to import or retrieve previously created annotations. One could import from the local file by clicking import, but what I want to do is retrieve from the AMI database. So if I click on retrieve, it checks over the internet for the database located at Emory in the Emory Data Service, and I can choose any of the annotations that have been created. I'll choose this one that says number 1, which was created by
The annotation
Dr.
is
Adam
valid
Flanders.
and complete.
So now it uploads all the fields that are present in that annotation, and I can go through them similarly to the way I created them myself.